Before we get on to the meat of this video, let me explain some things real quick. So, yes, going by the title and the thumbnail of this video, this is a response to what Mystic7 said a few weeks ago about the City Safari events. So, I've done a response video before. I've done one, in a response to what Training Tips said about some part of Pokemon Go a number of years back. So, by me saying response, this is not me debating what he says or going against what he says or anything like that. This is me responding to what he said, whether I agree with him or disagree with him. That's what a response is in this case. So I just want to get that out the way. And again, with that said, there's no beef or anything like that between me and him, anything like that. So don't assume anything like that. It's just me responding to what he said regarding the City Safaris events, because some changes were made from the one that took place in Seoul that he went to the one that took place in Mexico City that I went to. So with all that said, let's get on with the meat of this video. Alright, ladies and gentlemen of the YouTube citizens, y'all know who this is. It's your boy True Inferno. Today's date is Tuesday, November the 14th. So, we are going to respond to what Mystic said about the City Safaris events. Now, he posted this video about 11 days ago called The End of Pokemon Go Live Events, which I will admit is a bit of clickbait, so to speak. But is there some truth to that? Well, we're gonna find out right here, right now. We're gonna go by what was said in that video. So let's get things started. So around the 3-minute and 42-second mark, he basically talked about his time at the Safari Zone or City Safari event that took place in Seoul, South Korea, because that was the only one out of the 3 that he'd been to. He didn't go to the one in Barcelona. He was supposed to go to the one in Mexico City that I went to, but I don't know what happened, but he didn't show up. But going back to the video, he basically said,
since the event was hosted in the entire city, the spawns were kind of spread out and weren't really all that great. What this event felt like was more of a glorified community day rather than a Safari Zone. And the hype that always surrounds the big Safari Zone events just wasn't really there for the City Safari.
Here's the thing about that one. That was for Seoul, and that one might have been for Barcelona. So I can't dispute those. Why? Because I didn't go to those. So it's kind of hard for me to dispute something that I didn't attend against somebody who actually attended the Seoul one at least. Now, I don't know about the one in Barcelona. I haven't heard any feedback or reviews from Barcelona, so I have no clue. But the assumption here is that what happened in Seoul, the gameplay experience that took place in Seoul, was the same in Barcelona. Now, were they the same in Mexico City? So while the spawns were still spread out, but at the same time, there was more of them, I felt like there were more spawns in Mexico City. And by comparison, I felt like, based on the information that I have heard and seen about Seoul and Barcelona, I felt that the spawn rates in Mexico City was better. I think they improved the spawn rates there. And does it feel more like a glorified community day? Well, there are levels to this. It might have been a glorified community day at this level at Seoul and Barcelona, but in Mexico City, I felt like it was like right here. It was a glorified community day at this level as opposed to at this level. It still didn't feel like a Safari Zone type of vibe. Didn't feel like a Safari Zone type of experience in my opinion, since I've been to 2 Safari Zone events. So I will agree that, yeah, the hype wasn't there. It was better than what it was at Seoul, based on what I have seen and what I have heard, and the same goes for Barcelona, but it wasn't at the level of any Safari Zone event that we had, whether I've been to it or not. At the 4-12 mark, he said that this is the part where he's now comparing the numbers in terms of YouTubers. So he talked about himself, he talked about the training club, he talked about Zoe 2 Dots, he talked about Brandon Ton, he talked about Training Tips, he talked about JT Valor and things of that nature. So here's the thing. I'm not going to show y'all my exact numbers. I'm going to summarize my numbers. So the numbers that I pulled in for my Safari Zone video, I'm not counting the Community Day one. So the numbers I put in for my Safari Zone, or City Safari Zone video rather, were good by my standards. I only been to 2 Safari Zone events, the one in Philly and the one in Montreal. And the numbers for those 2 in comparison to the City Safari video, they were roughly the same. Like, it was pretty much the same for the Philly one, and then the Montreal one was slightly worse than my City Safari one, but it was probably like 5 views, something like that. So it wasn't really by much. So it was around the ballpark pretty much. My numbers were roughly the same. Now, if you were talking about a Gold Tour event, well, the one that we had in February, yeah, those numbers were better. If you talk about my Gold Fest videos, so the Osaka one was much better. The New York one was around the same as well, even though that was also my birthday. So there's that as well. Now let's move on to the 447 mark, because I mentioned the training club. He actually got a review that the training club did on Seoul, where he said the following.
Overall review of the day, okay? So it had the egg hatch bonuses and everything like that, which was great. The shiny rates were not crazy good for me. As far as the Eevee with the safari hat, I thought that we were gonna be able to get multiple chances. We only got a grand total of 8 chances to be able to get that shiny. And I just felt like it was missing some type of like a little bit more structure. While we are in the city, and that's cool, it was a little bit challenging to navigate the city. And the fact that the Eevee stops are throughout the city and helping you explore is cool, but at the same time, I was expecting like, oh, we, you know, go all this way to get to this Eevee stop. Instead of it contributing towards the time to research, I thought that it was gonna give us maybe some Eevee field research. Overall, cool to play in a different place. Would I say that it was totally worth it to travel all that distance to here? I would say that probably that would be not for me.
Okay, so the one in Mexico, there was no special rates at all. Like, if you want to count this as special, they did bring back the Shadow or the Kuno raids, which in my opinion, I didn't felt that it was special. Although I did get 2 shiny Shadow or the Kunos, give me a grand total of 3. So I can't complain that much, but I would rather for it to be Lugia again or Moltres again. So that's my thoughts on it. But it is what it is. But in terms of a special raid that were tailored towards the City Safari event, there was none, so I agree with him there. In terms of the Eevee with the special head, yes, that is a problem still. I agree with him on that notion. I also agree that the structure was missing, as it was challenging to navigate throughout the city. It was the same in Mexico City as well, so I totally agree with that. You needed like a outside device to do that. I didn't use such a device, rather other players did, and we were just following them. That is also an issue. In the shiny race, this is where things get different. Now, he mentioned JT Valor, he as in Mystic7, not he as in Trainer Club. JT Valor had like, I think 20 shinies on both days at Seoul or Barcelona, whichever one of those events he went to. He did go to Mexico City. I didn't see his video yet, so I have no clue how many shinies he got while he was in Mexico City. But my shiny rates, I felt like they were really, really good in Mexico City. Again, they were my shiny rates. Day one, if you saw my video, I got a bunch of shinies, and at one point within an hour, I was getting a crap ton of them. I actually got a back-to-back shinies, which was crazy. But the thing about it was this: the 3 shinies, or technically 4, that I was looking for, I didn't get on day one. Well, that's not true. I did get 1 Skiddo on day 1. In terms of the Dusko with the crown, nope. In terms of the Shiny Unknown X, nope. I did not get those on day 1. But on day 2, my shiny started by getting those 3 Pokemon. Another Skiddo, Unknown X, and the Dusko with the crown. And I ended up with 3 of those, so I completed that family, the Dusko. And I ended up with like 4 shiny Skiddoos, even though I got caught 3 on day 2. And the thing about the day 2 was, I felt like a lot of people was catching more shiny Skiddoos on day 2. Lando Alpha was catching like 4 or 5. And then these 2 random trainers that we were hanging out with, very cool dudes if I do say so myself, they were catching shiny Skiddoos. They had at least 3 on, you know, within the hours that, like what, the hour and a half, 2 hours that we were hanging out together before we parted ways, excuse me. I felt like day 2 was better in terms of the more important shinies. I felt like they made some improvements with the shiny rates. We'll get more on that later. Let's move on to the 655 mark in the video, where Mystic, now we done with the Training Club review. We now moving on to Mystic at this point going forward. Mystic7 says,
a really fun event to play if you're in the area, but nothing worth flying around the world for.
That I will agree. I would totally agree with that. The next one, they already announced that one. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that in this video. Is there's gonna be one in Taiwan, I think in March. So if you're in that area, definitely get your ticket. Day 1 and day 2, take part in the event. If you're near the area, you should, go get your tickets. But like, if you're in Europe somewhere, or if you're in North America somewhere, or South America, no, I would not fly over there. And in fact, I'm not going to the Taiwan one. With all due respect to the likes of Pierre, who I met in 2018, just that one time, but I did meet him. Very cool dude. Very cool dude. No, you know, with all due respect to Pierre, with all due respect to everybody who lives in Taiwan, who loves Taiwan and things of that nature, I have no interest in going to Taiwan at this moment in time. So I would not be going to Taiwan for this event because the interest isn't there, for one. And for 2, there's other priorities in terms of places that I want to go to next year. One of them being Australia, which, let's just say, a certain rumor about Taiwan came true, and Australia is also in that ballpark. Let's just say that. And then there's, of course, going to Hawaii for Worlds. There's another rumor about LA, which may or may not be true, but either way, I still want to go to LA, to Cali, whether the rumor is true or not. My boys want to go to Puerto Rico. There's a lot of places next year that would be bigger priority than Taiwan. So that's why I won't be going to that one. But I do agree, like, if you're in the area, you should take part in the event. It's going to be fun. You're gonna have a blast. But if you're not in the area, I wouldn't mess with it. I wouldn't mess with it at all. Now, we're gonna get more to the Pokemon Go article, because on Pokemon Go Hub, there was an article where Niantic was interviewed. At the 8:06 mark, they, Mystic7 referenced the article that was on PokemonGoHub.net, actually. So the article title is called, "We Talked with Niantic About the Future of GoFest, City Safari, and Safari Zone Events." At the 8:13 mark of the video,
one of the major topics, will City Safari events replace Safari Zone events? I know I've been saying the entire time that they are doing that, but what did Niantic have to say about it? They answered by saying, "Niantic is constantly experimenting with new event concepts, and Safari Zone type of event is currently on pause. They are not canceled, but the focus is on City Safari type of event right now." And for those of you who do not speak corporate PR, that basically roughly translates to City Safari events are replacing Safari Zone events.
Now, do I agree with that? 100%? No. But at least 80%? Yes. Because here's why, and this was also referenced in the article, because it's much cheaper and easier to host a City Safari event than it is a GoFest and a Safari Zone event, because you need to get permission from that area to use that park. You probably have to pay to use the park, and then you have to bring in a lot of people to set up the stands and the habitats and stuff like that, and then you can only charge so much, so many tickets, because there might be a limit on the amount of people that can be in that park. So remember, the GoFest format, where half of the people be in the park and the other half would be in the city, they haven't done that with the Safari Zones yet. So we don't know if they're gonna do that with the Safari Zones. Keep that in mind as well. I'm not 100% on board with the whole, the City Safari event will replace Safari Zones, because I feel like with Safari Zones, they are a bit more exclusive than City Safaris, because with City Safaris, it giving people around the world a chance to attend an in-life person event, especially for those who can't travel all around the world. I think, which is, we're gonna talk more about how that is good later. But with Safari Zones, obviously that involves traveling, because only certain places will get it, and there's not a lot of them per year prior to this year. Keep that in mind as well. 100%, I'm not 100% on board with him believing that the City Safari events will replace Safari Zones, but I'm nearly there. I'm nearly there. Now, at the 8:39 mark, he basically said that Niantic explains why they're doing this, which I just touched about in a little bit. So check this out.
Niantic then explained why they're doing this. City Safaris allow lighter footprint event that still has the same enticing in-game bonuses that draws players to travel to a location, but without the whole logistical nightmare that is GoFest and Safari Zone. Which seems a bit out of touch, because the event bonuses and incentives as a part of the City Safaris aren't really worth traveling around for, kind of like the Safari Zone events were. But that's the whole idea for them here. It's a similar enough experience that's much cheaper and easier to produce, sacrificing quality for ease.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. The bonuses for the City Safari event in Mexico City was still not great. They were not good at all, in my opinion. So it's about the same as they were in Seoul and Barcelona. So to say that, oh, the bonuses will, it's good to bring people out, it's like, no, they're not. The bonuses are not on the same level as Safari Zone. That's what I meant to say. But they're not. They're really not. So that's out of touch. That's not true. I totally agree with Mystic7 on that one. Moving on to the 909 mark. He then go on to accuse them of trying to take it easy with the game all year, which resulted in the game and community feel kind of dead. Okay. Half of this I agree with, and we'll get more of this later in the video. Yeah, they are trying to take it easy with the game, and they've been doing that all year long. And I'm not gonna go as far to say that the game is dead, but in terms of the community feeling dead, it's iffy. It depends on where you are and how your community responded to the changes, to COVID and all that jazz. For example, my local community, which would be in Discord, not Discord, but in Dearborn rather, it's not what it used to be, especially when it comes to raiding. It's not what it used to be. Now, granted, we had the Mega Garchomp raid day event. People were out for that, but it wasn't a lot. and it wasn't severe as it once was. Like, you know, the inner circle, I didn't see any members of the inner circle out there at all. We didn't get together, call pool, and drive around from gym to gym to gym to do a bunch of raids like we used to back in the day. So that didn't happen. But what ended up happening was this: people were at the Civic Center Dearborn and they were raiding, and they stayed there for extra hour because the raids respawned. Now I'm not sure if any of them stayed for the third hour because I left. I wanted to do other stuff and I was pretty much done. I had all the mega energy that I needed, so I was good. And this was Garchomp at the end of the day, so I was good for the most part. But if you were to go to Heritage Park in Taylor, the community down there is great. It's still great. So that's what I mean. It's iffy to say the communities are dead or even feel kind of dead, because in some places, yeah, in other places, no, but there are some places that are in between. So Dearborn is in between now, whereas Heritage Park in Taylor, oh, they pretty much alive. So yeah, it's kind of an iffy response that I have towards his statement there. Moving on to the 9:15 mark, he then talked about the upsides.
Now, there are absolutely some huge upsides of the City Safari events that Niantic did touch on that I completely agree with. There's a huge economic impact on the cities that the events are hosted inside of, and players both locally and regionally are able to explore an area that they're maybe new to or haven't seen much of through Pokemon Go. City Safari events are a great idea. I'm really happy they're in Pokemon Go, and I'm excited to see more of them. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, I do agree, and I mentioned this when I talked about the whole Taiwan again, the City Safari event, and whether it's worth going. If you're local, if you're near the area, if you're regional, yes, I agree. Yes, it is better. It does bring in more revenue to the area. It brings more people to explore places that they might have never been to before. So I totally agree with that. Now at the 9:40 mark, he went on to say,
we want to make sure that people traveling all over the world to Barcelona City Safari have a chance to experience the entire city. Why just corral them into one location if they can experience the entire city?
I'm gonna read a few paragraphs of the article. He also added that it is a much easier to pick locations. Wait, he also added that it is a there's a grammatical typo there. I'm like, wait a minute. He also added that it is much easier, get rid of the A, to pick locations for city safaris, and give an example of why Barcelona was picked. And Lena gave much more details later on, and he said Barcelona is a perfect location because it is worth the visit due to its cultural history, many landmarks, easy to reach from all over Europe and other international destinations. Which, that last part, well, I ain't gonna say it's easy. Nah, I don't know about that one, because if you talk about international, you're not talking about Europe. You're talking about other continents, which involves flying over there, which is gonna be resulting in a lot of money spending. So I totally disagree with that last part, but everything else, okay, fine, so be it. Moving on. Barcelona's waterfront location makes it definitively a special place to visit and a perfect opportunity to extend your stay, even post the in-game event. This was not the case for some of the cities that were picked for safari zones, as the limiting factor there is the on-site public infrastructure. Okay, so let's compare that to Mexico City. There are landmarks there. There's a bunch of things to see in Mexico City, which is 100% true. I truly agree. Without question, I agree with that statement. And I'll get more with Mexico City in a second. But what I will say is this: the walking is terrible. I hurt my left ankle walking that ground, walking the roads, walking the sidewalks. It's terrible. And if you're gonna be playing Pokemon Go, look at your phone, and you're not near the street where you have to cross anything like that, you're going to tumble and you may hurt yourself. I seen Lando tumble, Mrs. Mine probably tumble, a bunch of people tumbling, I was tumbling, and I hurt my ankle. While the landmark and the sites were amazing in Mexico City, it's not worth walking there. And there was Wi-Fi issues, there was cell service issues down there as well, because there was a bunch of people really at one spot and there was so much going on. So the main park there to play Pokemon Go at, there was a lot of people there in combination with other stuff that was going on there. So the cell service were bad. There was parades all over the place, and there was a parade near another park, a bigger park, and there was a lot of people there as well. And again, the cell service was terrible. This was on day one, and to a degree on day two as well. While I enjoy Mexico City, and I'll be honest, if there was like a group trip and I was invited to it, I would go. But if there's like another Pokemon Go event down there that was not Go Fest or Safari Zone, like another city safari, I probably would not go. I don't know. It's up in the air with that one. So even Mr. agreed, with that statement in terms of why I corralled them to one location. He agrees to a certain extent, rather, as he felt people are traveling there for the event, not just for the city, which is true. I went to Mexico City for the event, not the city. Well, I was flown out there for the event, not for the city, and I decided to go. So there's that. He went for his Go Fest format, where half of it was at the park and the other half was in the city, and he theorized that if the gameplay was personally better in the park than it was in the city, he would rather be in the park, which was not the case for Osaka, and I firmly agree with the Osaka part. It was much better to play the game in the city than it was in the park. The park was way too out the way, and that park was terrible. But the city, oh my gosh, Osaka was phenomenal. But that's beside the point. Everything that he said prior to that in terms of his theory is kind of incorrect. If memory serves me correctly, when it came to the Go Fest format of this year and last year as well, I think Niantic really wants you to be in the city as opposed to being in the park for two reasons. One, they don't want a bunch of people in the park so that it'll be feel congested and you can barely move around in the park, for one. And remember, the park is open to everybody, not just Pokemon Go players, to everybody. And number two, they don't want to get in trouble with whoever's in charge of the park, whoever owns the park. More likely that'd be the local government, wherever the case may be, in case something goes wrong. So they would rather have people play in the city, so the shiny rates and the gameplay would be better in the city. And for me in New York, I felt like it was better in the city than it was at the park. And I'll be honest, if it wasn't for the fact that I had to do the meet and greets in the park, I probably would have stayed outside of the park. Like, I'll be honest. I'll be perfectly honest. Randall Park was also terrible as well, as it was also out of the way. So keep that in mind as well. So that's why I don't agree with his theory, but I do agree with the Osaka part. Yes, that is true. Moving on to the 10 training mark.
In-game bonuses make it well worth the trip, especially if you extend your stay for a couple of days, especially if you consider that the list of Pokemon is catered to Barcelona, featuring Skiddo, Gible, and Relicanth.
Okay, so there's a lot of things wrong with that statement. In order for you to extend your stay, it means that you're there already, and you like,
oh, I like it so much, I'ma stay longer. So I'ma push back my flight. I'ma try to stay at the same hotel, a different hotel.
which means you need more money to do that. And then if you're working a full-time job, you need to call your job and say,
Yeah, I know I'm supposed to come back tomorrow, but I'm gonna stay in Barcelona for 2 more days, so I won't be coming back tomorrow.
who does that? It's not even possible to do. It's not possible, generally speaking. So that part of the statement alone is totally false and not realistic. So right there, that's already false right there. So that's number one. Number two, the Pokemon that are catered to Barcelona, and she mentioned Relicanth, Skiddo, and Gible. That's also, now in terms of like a theme, in terms of like the theme that you're trying to go for with Barcelona, I don't know. I can't speak on that. But in terms of like Pokemon that are based on Barcelona, whatever the case may be, I had to say that's not true as well. Because you could get, Gible had his own community day. Gible had his own community day. We just had Mega Garchomp Raid Day not that long ago, which is, you know, the final evolution of Gible, Garchomp that is. So Relicanth, I think that is a regional that belongs somewhere else. I could be wrong with that. I don't know. So that's not true either. And Skiddo was also at Seoul. It was also at Mexico City. It's going to be at Taiwan. And by the way things are looking, Skiddo will be at every City Safari event. So to say that, oh, it was tailored towards Barcelona, that's also not true. So that part of the statement is totally not true as well. Now, the thing that, again, we're going to talk about what he said to this part. The in-game bonuses made it well worth the trip. Mystics again said that it was out of touch, especially if you're traveling there from, you know, outside of the country or outside of the continent rather. But it's definitely worth it if you're in the area. So while that last part is true, again, it is out of touch. No, the bonuses will not lead you to spend thousands of dollars to fly over to Barcelona or to fly to a City Safari event and to spend more money staying at a hotel or Airbnb or wherever. That entire statement is totally false. He also went on to say that catching the feature and rare shinies rather were harder to do than they would be at Safari Zone events. And he also pointed out that the shiny rates and spawns were way lower. So again, that might have been the case in Seoul, that might have been the case in Barcelona. It was not the case in Mexico City. Like, I think they improved it. They improved the shiny rates, in my opinion. They improved the spawn rates as well. So that's my opinion in terms of how things went in Mexico City. Again, I have no clue how they were in Seoul, but apparently they were bad, so I'm gonna take his word for it. I have no clue how they were in Barcelona. He felt like they were bad there, so I'm not gonna dispute that. But in terms of Mexico City, They were improved. Now, I'm not saying they're at the level of Safari Zone, no, but they were improved. So I will say that. 1059 mark, Eevee with the Safari hat. They talked about that.
Eevee with Safari Hat is a fun collectible that was integrated to the journey throughout the city, with the goal of making them relatively difficult to get unless you explore the entire city. Visiting Eevee Explorer Pokestops makes it possible to get Safari Hat Eevee, but you have to work for it.
Well, I don't disagree with that statement, but I think it's flawed as well. So let's talk about what Mystic said to that. He said that it's kind of a huge problem, which I agree. And then he said this: when the event was initially announced, the exclusive Eevee was a huge part of the event, which was true. Most people assumed that it was spawning the route. However, they added in small text that you can only catch this special Eevee through special research, and it was not announced anywhere except on the website, which is a huge problem. I don't recall if that happened, because again, when it came to Seoul in Barcelona, I had little interest in going, and I wasn't sure if I was going to the one in Mexico City. I haven't heard much about that one at the moment, but I don't know if that was true or not. So here's the scenario. Let me paint some pictures for you guys real quick. I don't recall if they ever said at the very beginning of the whole City Safari fiasco that the Eevee with the Explorer hat was spawned in the route. If they were to say that, and then changed their mind a few days later, said, no, it's gonna be special research, and then they didn't announce it, that's a problem. That's a problem, because people who got the money in the flights for Seoul and Barcelona and Mexico City just for that, they're gonna be pissed. And now, while they can't, I'm not sure they can necessarily sue because of false advertisement. I'm not sure you can take them to court and do that, but the trust factor with Niantic will go low if that was the case there. So again, I'm not sure if that actually happened, or even if they were to say, oh, we got Eevee with the Explorer hat and it could be shiny, and then in bold print they said, oh, you're going to get it for special research. Even with that, like, there was going to be somewhat of a trust issue, because you're not being fully honest. Like, how do we get these special Eevees? Because if they didn't say how at the very beginning, people are going to assume, oh, you can just get them in the route. But obviously that's not the case. So I'm not sure how this came about, or how this was when this whole City Safari stuff got announced, but if it went as he said it went, the trust factor with Niantic should drop. I'll be honest, the trust factor should drop. There you go with that. And he also added on by saying that it wasn't an exciting incentive. The event was about hunting this exclusive Pokemon, and he preferred to hunt it via field research and not hope that you get it out of, what, 8 to 17 attempts. Which is true. I totally agree with that. So in Mexico City, we had 17 attempts to get this Eevee. I didn't get it, but one of the two dudes that me and Lando was hanging with on Sunday, he not only did he get a shiny, but he also got a hundo as well. I didn't get anything like that at all. So yeah, I felt like the special Eevee should have been in field research, because you have more shots to get it, for one, and two, you're still exploring the city because you have to find Pokestops. It should have been through field research and not through a special research where you have 17 shots to get it at most. That's a problem right there. Now the 1238 mark, he talked about how the question was asked in the article, will City Safari replace Go Fest? And they said not only will it not replace Go Fest, but Go Fest 2024 is already in the works, which is good. Nothing to replace Go Fest, without question. At the 1250 mark, he said that the City Safari Taiwan event was announced, and that was a few weeks ago, so we all know about that. And he also said that he won't be going to that as well. That was also pointed out in the article, and that would be it in terms of me referencing the article. 1302 mark, he talked about how more Safari or City Safari events are good for people in the local or regional area, which is true. I already talked about that already, so I'm not going to get into that further. 1340 mark, what he said there was,
what I don't love is the fact that Safari Zones will now be a thing of the past, replaced by something that is easier, cheaper, and a lot less fun. And that's my main gripe with this whole thing. Again, I've got nothing against the City Safari events. It's this, the constant shaving away of every aspect of Pokemon Go that makes the game unique, exciting, and fun.
And he also pointed out that that's been a theme for the years, starting with the nerf of remote raids, the updates coming out with bugs and glitches, and how the changes and features that were implemented to the game have pretty much flopped. Now, I'm gonna be honest, all of that is true. All of that is true. Like, he talked about, you know, the party feature, he talked about showcases, he talked about the routes. All of those flop to start off with. He does have a point there. I can't dispute anything that he says there. 1450 mark of the video. He accused Niantic of being extremely disconnected from the game, and he accused them of focusing on saving money and not making the game bigger, better, and more exciting to play. Which again, I agree with. Remember, they had to lay off a bunch of people. So That's probably, you know, one of the reasons why they had to lay off a bunch of people, because financially they wasn't doing well. All these changes that happened this year, you could say that it was about them saving money. And like, there's nothing wrong with saving money, but when it comes at the expense of the game being fun and bigger and better, yeah, then people won't spend much time in the game and people might drop the game, which is not what Niantic want. If you keep people in the game, then people will be like, oh, the game is fun, and people will be willing to spend money into the game. Would it be enough to like keep Niantic afloat? I don't know, but the possibility is there. 1529 Mark, this is the last thing I'm gonna talk about in this video. He said,
now I understand this video is super dramatic and most people don't even go to the Safari of His Own events, so like, who really cares? But I do think this echoes a really important trend that's happening with Pokemon Go that, I don't know, I kind of hate to see.
So Raul, again, the likes of Mystic7, even myself, and even the training club, we was like, yo, if you don't live in the area, if you're not close to the area, do not go to the City Safaris events. So why should you care about this? But at the same time, the last part about them going in a different direction to try to save money and coming out with features that flop and all that stuff is, well, I'm not sure about the save money part, but everything else is true. And that is a problem. That is a problem for the future of the games. I feel like that problem needs to be adjusted as soon as possible. That's my take on the whole, you know, City Safari events. Overall, is it bad? No, it's not bad. But my thing is, Niantic wants to make the City Safari events the same as a Safari Zone event. In my opinion, they feel that City Safari's events are the same as a Safari Zone event, and that is totally not the case. It's really, really not. They need to do more with the City Safari's events to make it feel the same as a Safari Zone. If they do that, more people will try to go. If they don't do that, I'm gonna say this right now, if you're not in the area, do not try to go to these. Do not try to go to these. So there you have it with that. Now, let me get back to this one rumor that I talked about with the Taiwan thing. That rumor came true. The rumor that was tied to Taiwan is that there might be a City Safari coming to Australia again. I don't know. But if that is true, if that does become realistic, I will go to that one. And the reason why is because, well, I did say if you're not local, don't go. But at the same time, Australia has been my bucket list for decades. So I always wanted to go to Australia. And if there's a City Safari event in Australia, that's right there, I'm going. And then that would be ironic because one of the things that was in the article that they believe that people go for the city, that would be the rare exception where I would go for the city for whatever the area that is Australia. That would be the rare exception. But everybody else, no. But for me personally, since I always wanted to go to Australia, it's basically two birds with one stone. Go to a City Safari event that just happened to be in Australia, which is where I always wanted to go, and that is the last place left on my main bucket list. So if that is true, and in Australia get a City Safari event, I will be going to that. Whether I get sent out there or not, I will be going to that. So there you go with that. I'm gonna call it a wrap. So with all that said, y'all know this boy New Jake Ashby, aka New Stupid Nate Smith, saying peace out, y'all, and I'll see y'all next time. Yeah. Subscribe. Thanks, man. Do it. After you subscribe to the channel, make sure you click the bell icon so you never miss a new video or a live stream ever again. Thanks, guys.
Lewis the trainer, articulating paint. With my tongue, I done things that people said I can't. Now they rank 'em with the elite, but it's for the people, and victory is part of defeat. Cause when you get back on your feet, then you try again. Learn from mistakes, show 'em that I got what it takes, and I'm dying to win. I'ma hit and move away.